Hey everybody. Okay, so today is Tuesday, April 6th, and everybody is a remote learner today. So again, if you were in class yesterday, I said, hey, you'll need to watch the video like I always post. And so here we go, lesson 3 of Unit 11. Of course, if you'll remember back from last week and you took your formative yesterday, lesson 1 was over the Industrial Revolution, lesson 2 over imperialism. And of course, the Industrial Revolution was a huge catalyst of change, and it's going to play a part even in lesson 3. The biggest thing that really changes, that starts to shake up this new round of revolutionary activity, is of course the class structure. Now you have, as I've said before, more rungs to that ladder, more options. You have who was originally the middle class, now very much the upper middle class to the rich. And then you have the working class, and then you have the lower middle class, and then you still have these like poor peasants still living like serf existences in certain areas, or rural areas of Europe. And so again, it's no big shocker that you see the 1848 revolutions come up. Because again, you throw everything that I just mentioned into the bowl, add nationalism and liberalism, which we talked about at the end of the last unit, in there as well, and it's bound to erupt. Those things just don't, the problems don't go away, and those ideologies just don't go away. So, after the end of Napoleon, okay, so 1815, Congress of Vienna, Concert of Europe, what are we going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? All the conservatives of Europe wanted just order and peace, and that remained for a while. Everybody kind of went along with it for a little bit because, hey, everybody could use a little bit of a reprieve. So in France, you had the restoration of the monarchy, and you're going to have these nationalists and liberals overthrow the monarch Charles X in 1830 and establish a constitutional monarchy headed up by Louis Philippe, who was he was a monarch, yes, obviously, but he had ideas that were much more like attuned to the new Republican-minded, liberals. And so they put him on the throne as the new constitutional monarch in France in 1830. But by the mid-1840s, France is having a lot of economic problems again. You have, again, the social class structure that has changed. So you have this new group of people wanting more rights, more say, and Louis Philippe basically refuses to play that game. He likes the original class structure, and he's like, that's the only one I'm really willing to deal with. And that's just can't be the case when you're industrializing. I mean, there's too many things changing, class structure being definitely one of them. And so because he refuses to make changes to give the middle class more rights within the constitutional monarchy that was set up in 1830, he was overthrown in 1848. And this is kind of the second, you've got like the July Revolution in 1830, and then you've got really the true second French Revolution happening in 1848. They want France to be a republic again. They set up a provisional government. They called for the election of representatives to a constituent assembly. They wanted universal male suffrage. And they also, of course, were like, we've got to fix our economic problems. Well, there was a socialist that lived amongst this group and was a big voice to the Second French Revolution. And he thought up the idea of basically these like basically, for lack of a better word, it was like welfare unemployment type banks. And so you had people who were broke going to these places, and the government was giving them X amount of money until they could get their feet underneath them and get a job. Well, that's not easy to do when you're already broke as a nation. And so these workshops, like where people, again, essentially like welfare or unemployment, they ran out of money. And so the moderates, of course, are screaming at this, going like, this is not sustainable. This sounds really great, but like, we can't just be handing money out right and left. And so, of course, they had to close the workshops pretty quickly after the idea, got started and took root. And this turned into a bloody mess in the streets of Paris when the workshops closed. The people that had, started banking on the fact that those workshops were going to be open and that's where they were going to get their money were really bitter. And they were like, this is supposed to be a new country and a new government that helps the people. And I mean, but a government can't help the people just by giving you money and providing you with your living. I mean, that's not what a government is supposed to do. So thousands are killed in Paris, and it's this 4-day bitter, bloody fighting mess. And you end up with lots either killed or sent to Algeria, which was France's prison colony at the time in northern Africa. So the Second French Revolution is a mess. Okay, if you've ever seen Les Miserables, this is what it's about. This is a clip, kind of a really famous song from the play Les Mis. Do you hear the people sing the songs of angry men? It's so. I challenge you to watch that clip, please. If we were in class, you would know I would show it to you. And here we go. The Second French Revolution is going to end with a Bonaparte. You're going to have a new French Constitution ratified November 4th, 1848, that creates what they call the Second Republic. You have universal male suffrage and a president chosen by that who serves for 4 years, okay? And they choose Napoleon Bonaparte's nephew, Louis Napoleon. And a lot of it has to do with, like his connection back to Napoleon. I mean, this just proves the point that the French people really, for the most part, still trusted that name, still believed that name to be a defender of new Republican nationalistic ideology. So that's definitely proving the point I said in the last unit. So what's the impact of this? Well, I mean, everybody sees France erupting in revolution again. And you also have a lot of people, again, feeling the same issues that France is feeling. Different, a shakeup in class structure, industrialization. People want more rights within their government. And, Germany during the Congress of Vienna had been not, it wasn't unified. And you had all of these little independent German states still. And so the need for German unification was real, but you also had to get everybody on the same page in order for that unification to happen. They tried it in 1848, what was known as the Frankfurt Assembly, and they just can't quite get it together. And that's a lot of these revolutions of 1848 are not successful in creating true like democratic government in the sense that like we experienced it in the United States after our revolution, because they can't get everybody on board, because you just have age-old aristocracy that doesn't like the ideas, that are being presented, or they don't completely hone in on it. And, you've got all of these new class structures that are kind of fighting for a piece of the pie that can't quite get along. Europe, believe it or not, I know a lot of people think like, well, Europe's just full of white people. Well, I mean, there's a whole differing, there's a lot of differing ethnicities there. And so, they all don't get along. There's tons of racism towards each other, white on white, that also, doesn't really allow for unity to take place easily or quickly. And so all of these things kind of lead to revolutions at this time frame not really working. They're all going to end in failure because it just doesn't, they can't bring it all together. So revolution in Austria starts, and again, it's kind of the same thing. You have just this huge multinational empire. You have Germans, Czechs, Austrians, Slavs, Romanians, Poles, Croatians, Serbians, Ukrainians, Italians. I mean, and they just don't get along. And so even if they have an idea of nationalism and liberalism that is around the same thing, their ethnicities and kind of long-standing racial discriminations towards each other just doesn't allow them to ever get past that. So by 1849, the Habsburgs are still in control. Revolution has been defeated, and it's still a monarchy. So, you have the reestablishment of conservative governments in most places after 1848. And, this, again, it kind of disillusions some of the liberals in Europe. Others, it just pushes them, honestly, more towards a communist view, or they back down and kind of become more moderate if they were leaning towards radicalism at that time. So this is a really great crash course that, he talks about kind of several differing revolutions. He talks about Germany, he talks about France, he talks about Austria. And the thing that you need to understand is, on Wednesday, lesson 4 is about unification. Okay. So yes, the revolutions of 1848 were not successful as a whole in creating unified, democratic, or constitutionally based governments. As a whole, it was not successful. But eventually we will get there. You will see that happen. It's just that, it's just kind of trudging through so many of the new changes that are occurring because of industrialization that it just, it takes several rounds for that to happen. But, so I told you guys it was going to be pretty short and sweet. I really want you to watch this. Again, if we were in class, we would watch it. And then on Wednesday or tomorrow, we will finish up the unit. So you guys have an awesome Tuesday. Hope you're being safe out there. See you later.